Hi guys, how are you all doing? Today we'll be continuing our rating climb on leeches. Last time we stopped at 1800. Let's see if we can hit 1900 in this video. So let's just start the game. We'll be playing 10 plus 5 like the before videos. Plus 30. Okay, so basically 30 plus 20 takes too long to pair, and blitz and bullet are just way too fast. Although a lot of other people do actually do rating climbs. So here we have e4 and we're playing the Sicilian. The Sicilian is a very solid opening against black. It's played very frequently. Um, yeah, the immediate d4 is actually a little rare. What white actually more commonly does actually c3 with the idea of d4 later. This is called the Alpine variation, I think. So now that I have played d4 directly, I'll just take. And now there's a really famous gambit here, which he played c3. And now the thing is, if you take, yes, you do have an extra pawn, but it's like white can just one move after the other, develop all their pieces, castle, and initiate an attack before you can even castle to safety. So it's very dangerous to take. If you want to, you can, but I don't think I'll take that risk. Let's go d6 safely. Now cd4, knight f6. Now this variation is actually a little more kind of familiar to me, or at least it will be soon, because you can also get this from the Alpin, where after trade, like we can get to a similar position. Here, I think I'll play bishop d7. So we're developing the bishop, and now I think I'm gonna play e6, because if I actually develop knight c6, there's the immediate d5, which gains a tempo. You're just attacking my knight, and I gotta move the same piece twice. And also, it's because after e6, I can develop the black square bishop. And now we have to relieve ourselves from the pin. Bishop c4. Now, and this is a really common idea in like many openings. This idea comes in the King's Indian defense, the Burke defense, and the Sicilian, and I think a few other openings from black. Here, an idea is knight e4, knight e4, d5. And yes, it might look like, what's the point? We both lose a pawn and a minor piece. The point is, we're creating that weakness on d4. But one thing I learned from doing this a lot is that before doing it, you gotta castle. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And now we're free. The next move we can play that. No problem. And now we take. And since our pawn is on e6, in some other openings when the pawn is not on e6, sometimes bishop takes f7 check is an option where you separate these two from the rest of the pawns. But since we played e6, that's not possible. Well, kind of. Actually, you're still free to play bishop e6, but that would be a blunder-ish because knight takes c3 attacks the queen. And of course, you're forced to take, and then I take, and then like I have an extra piece. So white's options are limited. If white does not want to lose material, he has to take. So, I mean, white could also be calculating options like queen c2, queen e1. Like you can just move the queen, move any piece. I'll just trade, have an extra pawn, happy. Okay, and now an idea for white could be like bring the knight to g5 and try to initiate an attack. Oh, and white has can't say outpost exactly, but an outpost like square on c5. It's like an outpost because like the pawns defending it, there's none of my pawns currently attacking it, but it's also not exactly an outpost because in the future I can play b6 and get rid of the knight. And of course, once you go to c5, you just threaten to like trade off my bishop, which is alright, I guess. But the thing is, I take the bishop, you take my bishop, I take back, and when you attack the pawn on c4, here's the thing: I have b5, a6. I have a good pawn structure. I'm alright. I have an extra pawn. My pawn structure is perfect. You have an isolated pawn on a semi-open file. A semi-open file is basically a file where none of your pawns are there, but it's not an open file because the opponent's pawns are there. That's called a semi-open file. Another thing white can do is actually just try and knight fd2 or something and like give me the option. Okay, bishop d5 and now ed5. We both have isolated pawns. So like our targets will be like the main thing will be in the center, the main attack, because of the two isolated pawns. They're very weak. So now I take back knight to c5, and here we have a lot of options, but I'll just ignore that knight over there. I don't want to trade off my bishop. Want to attack that pawn, so I'll try to remove a defender and pin that knight. Now I'm pinning the knight. So that basically means now I need to start making a plan to attack the pawn. Possible idea. Okay, here we can play queen f6. Not a bad option. In fact, it's a great option. And then we can go like knight c6 and like get the d4 pawn. So let's go for it, I guess. You can't attack my queen after knight c6. Okay, so we are kind of sacking the pawn on b7. But if we get the d4 pawn, we could just be winning because we're attacking on f2, b2. We have a passer that too in the center. We can just bring our rook, defend it. We just have to hold on to that passer until the end game, and we could win. So what white can do is, okay, here's another plan for us. Okay, rook e3. Now we need to consider our options here. Now if you play knight c6, yes, the pawn hangs. And then after knight takes b7, rook a b8. We need to calculate deeply. So knight goes back to c5. We're attacking b2. So do we take on b2 or d4? It's a really important question. My answer, take on d4. You're attacking the pawn, but more importantly, you're pressuring the pawn on f3. And of course, if they defend it, we have a simple plan. Just like take pawn takes on knight f5, attacking the rook. So I say let's go for it. Knight c6. The knight is still pinned. If you play h3, I can just take the knight. This tactic is called remove the defender. Basically, you're trading off one of the defenders, and since you're taking a piece, the opponent needs to recapture it, or else, of course, he's down a piece. And since he's recapturing it, we have the same number of attackers, but the difference is one defender has been traded off. So, as a result, there is a chance we can get the pawn for free. Unless, of course, there were way more defenders than attackers, or the opponent has a tactic he can use so that if we take, we can lose a piece. So that's why we need to think deeply to make sure our opponent does not have any tactics. H3. Now we can use that tactic. So we take the knight, and now something my opponent could play is rook f3, like I said. So now we do have options, and we need to choose carefully. So we can take and trade off queens. That could be dangerous. Or we cannot take, just move, try to attack, maybe just give up the attack for a while. These are all our options. So here, if we take, we trade, the enemy rook comes into act. No, you can't go, the rook is attacked. So rook d3, knight to check, knight f4, I guess. Yeah, I think I'm gonna trade off the queens. Take, rook e3. Oh, so here's the thing. You need to look at the entire board. Do not have tunnel vision. Tunnel vision basically means you're looking at only like one part of the board. I was kind of doing it right now. So basically what I saw was take rook here, and then after knight e2, knight f4, you just attack it, and like I can't hold on to the pawn. But then when I expanded my view to the entire board, what I saw was after rook d3, we can play knight e6, but of course that did not happen. So like knight takes b7. Here we can trade off queens if we want to. We can take on b2 as well, or we can just play rook a b8 and attack the knight. Now we need to calculate which move is the best for us. So here if we take on b2, he like my opponent can play rook b1, attack the queen. So once my queen moves, you're defending a knight. The knight is on the 7th rank in my territory, and next you can play rook d3, put a lot of pressure on the pawn. So I need to think of something right now. Or you can also just play rook b3. So another choice you have to consider. So rook a b8, take, and if you move your knight, we get the b2 pawn. So simple as that. And if you attack, I will just take. Like I don't know, make a battery. And then if you come into the 7th rank, I also come back and we trade. So taking all this into account, I'll say let's just take on b2, shall we? Taking on b2 takes risk. Rook a8 is a safe option, but takes b2 is really aggressive. I kind of like it, and like mm, nah, I think I'll just go rook a8. I'll go check this after the game during the analysis, because I don't think that was a good option because it's rook d3, and then you can just make a battery on this file. Your knight's very strong, you got a battery. Now I attack your rook. Interesting. Take. Check. Now knight f4. Now there's no need to worry because okay, rook b3, not a bad option. Um, okay, I was really low on time. I just played a random move. Okay, I need to calm down. So My next idea is rook c7, attack the knight, try to get rid of it. As simple as that. But it's actually not as simple as that. So, like white can go g3, I'll see you rook c7, of course. So, like, you take the knight, I take the knight. I don't care, your pawn structure is the one being ruined. Isolated, double isolated. And then later I'll take that and make that isolated while I have the connected pawns. f6 gets rid of my back rank weakness. So, what can my opponent play? I mean, knight d6 is not a bad option. You can trade off the rooks, which is actually kind of what you have to do, because if you have rook and pawn in game, so like for a rook and pawn in game, you have to trade off knights. They're mostly always a draw. Knight and pawn in games, on the other hand, are so tricky that like it's hard to make it a draw. So right now, mm, my opponent can just play like 96, 95, and I think rook d4 is also alright. Oh wait, I don't think rook d4, because like I can play 96, right? Just attack the rook. No, I don't think that's it. Oh, okay, right. Rook d4, rook c7. If you take, I take. I'm threatening to take that, and if I get the b2 pawn, I just have an extra pawn. So right now, my target is the b2 pawn. And if you move the knight, and you let me trade these rooks, you have a doubled pawn. They're really weak. And if I just get a rook, there is a chance I'm getting the pawns. I can put it on d8, I can put it on c2, chomp chomp. So yeah, looks like my opponent is thinking for a long time. What could he be calculating? So here are the small things you have to observe. If your opponent takes too much time, you have to think, what could he be calculating? Rather than just, um, let's play that. I already told you, it's not my structure that's getting ruined. It's your pawn structure. So now we have 10 seconds. That's all right. Um, take, take the pawn, and I think we can end. Yeah, we can enter c2 and attack both the b2 as well as f2 pawns. So actually, my opponent made a mistake allowing my knight to come to h3. This is why you need to calculate every move. You need to calculate very deeply. So now I'm guessing my opponent's gonna take on d5. Yeah. So I will go to c2. The second rank is the best place for a rook to be in. So king f7. I'll take on b2. Yeah. Now I'll go to g6. And now I can win another pawn. I'll give you guys some time to find out. Okay, so basically, if you didn't find it, it's 94 attacking the f2 pawn. So, because it's pinned, I have two pieces attacking it, and there's not really any way white can defend it. I mean, if king f3, I can just take it with the knight. So now, I might be a pawn up. That's check. And guess what? If you go to h4, I mean, my king is controlling these two. Okay, now I guess I'll just go there. Discover check. Hmm. Check, I guess. Now king e3, knight f1, king e2, knight b3. Okay, now I can play rook f2 check. Um, check. And I think that's gonna be mate, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a forced mate right there. Yeah, this is called a mating net, and like you put all your pieces in the perfect squares, and you're basically weaving a mating net. So this is how powerful mating nets are. Your opponent lots of the time doesn't even realize you're doing it. Thinks you're just giving checks, moving random pawns, but in reality, you're setting up a trap for the opponent. And my opponent didn't even realize it until the last move. So this is a very nice idea you can use in your own games. You just have to put your pieces perfectly positioned so that you can basically threaten a mate in one. And it's okay if the opponent finds out and stops it. You've tried. Okay, so let's analyze the game. Yeah, the computer does say take because like you're winning extra pawn, but for humans, this is actually a little hard to play. Why just keeps putting pressure on you? Like the immediate development, castling, attacks, it's hard to manage. And now the game continues. Um, Trading bishops is actually alright here. Yeah, here, like I said, I'm gonna turn on the engine to see if queen takes b2 or rook a b8 was better. So, yeah, basically I think queen takes, yeah, both are actually completely fine. As you can see, I went ahead for rook a b8. Trading queens was actually bad because I have a passed pawn. So white should not have traded queens. Oopsie. Give me a second. So now it continues. This was a blunder. If I went to c2, I would have been winning here itself. Just didn't realize that. And I would have been a knight up. Just like that. But I didn't realize it. Sometimes it's just hard to see. If you miss a tactic, it's okay. Just learn from it. So the game continued on. I got that extra pawn over there. Meru comes in. Check. Yeah, I think here Rook d7 would have also been better because you're getting the pawn with tempo. Anyway, here, yeah, king h3 was actually a mistake. This king h3 move gave me the idea of that checkmate. I saw it in a few before positions, like in all those chess books, silly chess puzzles. It's really not that much of an uncommon mate. This was a blunder. Okay, basically, since you went there, okay, I should have played rook b4 pin and like tried something there, but I just missed it. And now king g4 actually just allowed me to weave this beautiful mating net, and before you know it, it's just checkmate. And now the only option you have is knight f3, giving up your knight, and well, you just have three pawns on this side. Your rook obstructs this one. You just win. This was a really nice game. My opponent played really well, managed to make an outside passed pawn, but sadly, he didn't realize I was weaving a mating net around his king. And well, the game ended. So if you guys like this game, make sure to like and subscribe. We made it to 1900. We'll continue this rating climb in the next video. See you there.